This meeting is being recorded.
Yes. So good afternoon and welcome to this July 18th meeting of the Manufacturing Industry Sector Council. For the record, I'm Amy Fleming, Program Development and Engagement Specialist with the Governor's Office of Workforce Innovation. We'll get started here with a roll call. So this roll call will be for voting members. That's the only group that we really need to know if they're here, if we have a quorum. But everybody else, you're in the right place. This is an open meeting, and we absolutely encourage participation from voting and non-voting members. So just want to get that out there first. I do think I haven't heard from anybody that was planning on not being here for vacations, but we shall see. So please, voting members, when you hear your name called, just let me know that you're present. So Daniel Flick.
Here.
Garrett Papinga.
Here.
Paul Siebold.
Here.
Tom Simpkins.
Here.
Hunter Stern.
Here.
Yanni Tasev. Didn't see him. All right. And Jeff Wayne. I also didn't see him. All right. Well, with that, I hereby confirm that this July 18th, 2022 Manufacturing Industry Sector Council meeting has reached a quorum. I can also confirm that the agenda and notice for this meeting was properly posted pursuant to Nevada's open meeting law, NRS 241.020. So with that, we can move on to agenda item number 3, which is approval of the minutes. So again, this is for voting members in their formal duties as voting members of this council will be to approve or modify these minutes. So is there any discussion from voting members before I call for a motion to approve the April 8th, 2022 minutes? I know it's exciting stuff. All right, hearing no further discussion, I call for a motion to approve the April 8th, 2022 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
Approved.
Great. Paul moves to approve, and was that a second from you, Dan?
I was going to ask a question too.
Oh, okay.
Were those sent in this packet that you sent?
They were. Did you not receive those?
Oh, I'm sure I did. I just.
Oh, okay. I can make sure that we'll just double check that. I know we transitioned with CSN representatives. So.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't know if I have it in my package.
Okay, we'll get that out to you. All right.
Yeah, so somebody else who's read them can probably.
Okay, somebody else can second.
I'll second.
Wonderful. Any further discussion or any discussion at all? All right, great. So all those in favor, so you can say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So please let the record reflect that this motion carries. And that was your first formal duty as voting members of this Industry Sector Council. That's very exciting. Congratulations. All right, so agenda item number 4. I just wanted to quickly reflect on the previous quarter's meeting. While I do that, just very briefly, you are absolutely welcome to introduce yourself using the chat. This would just be like if we were in the room together and you were meeting one another and handing your business card off. We want you to have the opportunity to do that here. You can, but by no means is it required, but you're welcome to introduce yourself and share your contact information there. You may also use the chat to pose questions to presenters or others during the meeting. We will be reading them for the presenters. If we do run out of time, we'll ask folks to respond in the chat, but all of that will be captured and put together and then sent out following the meeting so that everybody has contact information that's shared and any of the Q&A that happens in the chat. So I really wanted to just reflect on last quarter's meeting and thank you all for being here and for your participation. It was a really excellent conversation, and we heard pretty quickly from partners who were present how much they valued the opportunity to hear from employers about those most critical needs and then to be able to respond and reach out. We heard from some engagements that happened as a result of that meeting, and it was really wonderful. So one of the while the details varied slightly between industries, there was an overwhelmingly common thread between industries that there is an urgent demand for talent. So while we've seen that shift a little bit, and we'll incorporate that into the conversation throughout the last quarter, we have made adjustments to some of the prompts for your introductions, and we've invited key partners to address opportunities to work with the populations, for you to work with the populations that they serve that are often overlooked. So please be mindful of the agenda item when you're sharing, whether you're an employer or a partner, and I'll help to remind you and kind of keep us on track in that way. All right, so we'll move on to agenda item number 5, which is employer introductions. So first, we'll call on any direct employers in the manufacturing sector. Once we get through those introductions, we'll call on partners that work closely with employers in this sector to share on behalf of their constituents. I know as a partner in the system how tempting it is to respond with resources when employers are voicing some of those high needs, but I do encourage you to hold off on partner introductions or any of your solutions to some of these issues until we address our partner introductions later in the meeting. Really want to make sure we can stay pretty focused on what that demand employer issue side is first. So at this point, your employers in the manufacturing sector are welcome to use the raise hand feature on Zoom. I'll get to them first, and then we'll work through others that aren't able to use that feature. I'm going to put these prompts in the chat. I know there are introductions too, so they're going to get kind of buried, but that's okay. All right. So for your employer introductions, and you are welcome to start queuing up using the raise hand feature, but it's okay, I'll call on you too. For your introductions, please share your name, your company that you work for, and your role in that company. And then this is really important to share any specifics you can provide on your top in-demand, hard to fill, or urgent to fill roles. This really helps us keep a finger on the pulse of what's happening ahead of what we get in some of the labor market information or the job posting data that's available. Please also share any acute barriers to or challenges in attracting or retaining talent. That's some of the information that tends to change pretty quickly between quarters, and it really helps our partners stay up to date on what those acute challenges are. And then, since this is our second meeting now, any notable changes in the past 3 months. And if you could also, if you have examples on top of mind, sharing a summary of any talent attraction resources or practices that have been particularly fruitful, or those that you would like help expanding upon. So I put those again. I know they're getting in there. I love the introductions. So you can scroll back up to see what some of those prompts are. All right, enough from me. I want to hear from you. So we'll turn it over to employer introductions. I don't see any hands raised. So yes, Garrett, go for it.
So my name is Garrett Popinga. I'm with Weinberg Machining. I'm the CEO and president. My biggest problem right now is employee retention. We have some large manufacturers that are giving us a tough time because they're taking semi-skilled people that we are training in-house and offering them a substantial amount of money, more than we can actually pay for their skill level, to be fair to the others that have gone before them. So that's a big problem. The other one is we do attract people except they've been around a lot of different shops, and they bring their own little baggage with them. They're pretty much not hireable in a sense. So those individuals float around and come back. I've had one individual that wanted me to employ him for the 5th time. And I said, well, that's not going to work. I think you're having too many issues to deal with and so on. So I see a lot of that happening. We're looking for quality control individuals, very difficult to find. We advertise all over the nation, making sure that we promote the region and the quality of life that we have here in Nevada. We do pay usually above scale, but that is being shattered by the problem that exists within the industry where people are so desperate, companies that have their own product line that have a little deeper pocket than I would have. And so those are the issues that we currently dealing with. Work-wise, we're quite busy. So having a problem with employees leaving for greener pastures creates another problem for us to keep our on-time delivery. That becomes a challenge. I do have some comments as to what I am involved in. We do job shadowing. We invite high schoolers from different high schools in the region to come and visit. We talk to teachers that facilitate those visits. We explain to them that they can come in on a Saturday to kind of see and feel what it's like to work in our environment. I think we show pretty well. We have some very high-tech equipment, state-of-the-art, that interests a lot of young people. The problem is that I think many of them are intimidated by the technology. And so we have to be careful as to how we present what we do, and that what they think of us as what is needed to work for us is, it can be done. It's easily overwhelming for them. So we've had a lot of high schoolers, junior high and high schoolers come through from throughout the region, even as far as Fallon and Yarrington and so on. And so that has been pretty interesting, except we have yet to see somebody to step forward to take an opportunity working for us.
Wow, thank you for sharing. And could you share your location too? I think that helps when we're talking about some of the regional difficulties.
Say that again, please.
Your region or where you're located.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Carson City. We're actually in Lyon County. So we're just right across the county line, so to speak. But we still have a Carson City address, which is kind of interesting. But so we're pretty much in the hub of, Genoa, Minden, Reno. We have employees from all those regions represented here.
Great, thank you. Thanks for sharing, Gerd. Other employers that are interested in introducing themselves and sharing a bit about their demand. Okay, I'll give it a minute, but also if you work with employers, we're fortunate to have many representatives in the state working with employers and with manufacturing employers in particular. So I would welcome those that work closely with manufacturing employers to please feel free to introduce yourself and share on behalf of the employers that you work with.
Oh, shoot, I'll go.
Thank you.
Bill Regenhart, Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance, LVGEA, and I am the Director of Workforce Development, and I work with basically all of the manufacturers here in Southern Nevada, and willing to work with anybody else.
And so what are you hearing from manufacturers in terms of demand? Do you have any information about the occupations that are more challenging to fill right now, or other barriers within the system?
Yeah, so through our regional sectoral partnership convenings that we've been having, we're hearing the same thing. It's workforce, that talent, trying to get people in that are at least have some mechanical aptitude. And then once they're there, trying to upskill them. We're also hearing challenges in upskilling incumbent workers from line personnel to supervisory and managerial positions. So we are working on that. Also, a lot of the manufacturers don't know all of the workforce resources that are available. So we created a one sheet for that and to pass out to all the manufacturers, and so they can have that handy guide. We've also created a coloring book to get out to the K through 12 system, so we could start, that pipeline earlier. And we're working on the messaging as well, because a lot of the manufacturers, one of the comments was manufacturing isn't sexy. So we're working on changing that messaging as well. So yeah, all around, we're still looking at that talent pipeline and how to strengthen that, and how to create that for the future. So.
Great, thanks, Bill. And Tom, yeah, go for it, Tom.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. I agree with you 100% on that, on what you're working with there. Really, the demand it's that entry level worker. We just cannot get that entry level worker in manufacturing. I mean, there's this misconception throughout the state that the entry level manufacturing worker is the same as the entry level logistics and warehouse worker. They are not. They are very different skill sets. And so what's happening is we have logistics, fulfillment, distribution jobs that are really kind of competing wage wise with our entry level mechanical jobs, and that's just the reality of a tight labor market right now. And so it's creating confusion amongst employers, because they've got people that are applying for logistics and warehouse picker and packer jobs. And they have manufacturing experience, and vice versa. And so for manufacturers are struggling to get that entry level position. So we need to try to find a way to create some differentiation there between that entry level manufacturing skill, which is different than the warehouse and distribution. There's some overlap for sure, but really kind of creating that stratification that we need in the job market. It is a higher wage. It is more experience. There are some credentials and things out there that they have. And so we're really getting manufacturers just being pinched across the board on that entry level, but that's kind of resonating up through the rest of the organization too. So what's happening is, if you've got a good employee that's showing up on time, that's working hard, that gets your vision, that gets well along with everybody, you're promoting them into a frontline supervisor job, like right away, because you have that. And so what happens is you lose efficiency on that labor that you need, and you probably lose efficiency on the management side, because this person probably doesn't have the management soft skills, right? They don't know a lot about conflict resolution on the shop floor. They don't know a lot about positive feedback or constructive feedback and how to deliver that. They don't maybe writing a job performance evaluation. And so the manufacturers are getting pinched all over the place, right? The upper level stuff, we've been able to cover that, I think, for the most part in the state. We're running skeleton crew there, but we have been for a while. But it's really those entry level jobs, Amy, and it's those mid-level manager, kind of that frontline supervisor job that's pinched for most of the manufacturers we talk to.
Absolutely. And so that was some similar feedback. I'll get to you in just a moment, Mark. That was some similar feedback that we received last quarter. And I'm wondering if that's just a steady challenge, or if that's increased or decreased at all between April and now.
But yeah, we can hear some manufacturers from manufacturers directly on that. But what we're hearing is that it's just getting tighter. The job market is just getting tighter. It's tighter and tighter. And so the wage inflation is going up, as Garrett mentioned. And so it's creating a lot of issues with equity in the workplace when it comes to wages, right? I mean, we want to be equitable with our employees, right? But we've got to do it in a way that makes sense. And so people, the job hopping and the retention, then it creates a cascading effect in this as well. And so we haven't heard it loosening up yet, that it's still pretty tight, and in many cases getting more difficult.
Got it. All right, Mark, go for it.
About that, I just wanted to mention that Dieter in its business services statewide is going through a restructuring a little bit where we're in a resource like ourselves, for example, is in a position to consult with you for free and try to put things together, along with the efforts that the Northern Nevada Development Authority and Mr. Kennard down at Nevada Works can maybe help address if you haven't utilized those resources, if you haven't reached out recently, especially for finding qualified individuals, maybe helping you in backing up your labor market information and that kind of recruiting. I realize that's a very small element, doesn't address the retention, but possibly with working from a single source, the whole region can come together and help you. And I just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you, Mark. And we will have an opportunity later in the agenda for partners to introduce themselves and share some of those resources. Right now, I'm really looking for employers and those that work closely with employers to share on that demand side. Paul, are you able to share? Introduce yourself.
Yeah, Paul Siebold. I'm the training manager for Tesla, Giga Nevada. Top demand jobs. I agree with Tom that it's entry level right now, that we're looking for associates, so manufacturing associates and some skilled technicians, entry level as well. Some challenges, of course, I think everybody hit on it, is that our demand is higher than what the supply of potential employees is out there. And we've been trying to overcome those barriers by reaching out to more of the state. We've been actively recruiting into Vegas and up into Elko, and trying to bring in fact, we will probably have approximately 75 high school graduates from Vegas starting in August for associates. So that's how we're trying to meet that demand. Some other changes that we're trying to address is how do we create pipelines internal for these higher level skilled jobs. So we've worked with the community colleges to build out programs where we're training our associates into technicians level jobs. And so I think we're all facing the same challenge, that there's a lot of demand for workers and not a lot of supply. And so we're just trying to figure out whatever the best way to get through that is.
Absolutely. And there was a great question posed in the chat from Ken Evans, wondering if it would help, or if there's been any consideration maybe to use language in this industry in particular, other than entry level, to help to attract those individuals into this sector. I'm curious if any of those employers or Tom or Bill have perspective into that, if maybe the idea, what was Ken goes on to say, the idea maybe of starting over or entry level just may not be as attractive, especially if they're coming with a little bit more experience. I know that's kind of an internal term, but sometimes they look at that. So I'm wondering maybe what language you do use.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point that Ken made. I don't have a, right off the cuff answer for that, but, we're looking at the vernacular across the board. So looking at changing workforce to talent. In other words, looking at those individuals, giving them a little extra edge. So yeah, I think we should look at that. Anything that we can change, to tweak to make it sexier for them to come in, I think would be a good thing. So yeah, that was a good point, Ken. Thanks.
Hey, Bill and Ken, I'd suggest also that the wage rates that are being offered are really beyond entry level. I mean, people have an idea about what the money is, and the money's better than that. So it's something that we try and communicate in our jobs as well. That the starting rates are good, and where you end up is much better. So maybe you finding some language that, starting, but not entry level would probably be more accurate about what the job is.
Yeah, I've heard in this conversation so far, the terms like associate or technician, and I think that seems to be pretty common in the industry. But Hunter, can you introduce yourself too, and if you have perspective with the employers that you work with on how demand might be changing over the past couple of months?
Well, sure. Hunter Stern. I'm with IBEW Local 1245. We're the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, and we represent utility workers and line clearance and other related workers at NV Energy, at rural electric cooperatives, which we call the co-ops in northern central Nevada, and then also contractors. And the contractors do line work, and they also do line clearance, tree trimming, and other work associated with utilities. And we also have members in the public sector at Tumwa in Reno. And it's interesting. We have members working in almost every city for one employer or another in town in northern Nevada. So we can carry the word of work and jobs. And we do have the responsibility of manufacturing, of representing IBEW members who work at manufacturing companies, but we don't really have any manufacturers in northern Nevada at present. Always looking for some. But in terms of the change, I don't know that a lot's changed in the last 3 months. I think it's still a struggle on the supply side. So I know that we're looking and actually working with NV Energy on a program to identify better resource or promote our work more in different communities throughout the state. And this is North and South. Our sister local in Las Vegas is 396, and it's a joint effort. So we've put some materials together. Amy, I should probably, as soon as I get them, as soon as they're finalized, I'll make sure you get copies of them as well, about attracting people into the utility work generally.
Thank you. Any other questions or contributions on the demand side, what you're seeing out there, hearing from employers, or facing yourselves, in particular, changes over the past 3 months? 3 months is not a long time, but we did, and we've had the second round for logistics and for technology, and saw in logistics in particular a bit of a shift between the first and second meeting, just in terms of the wage spiral that they were needing to engage with to be competitive. So that was an interesting point to share here.
Just one quick note, Amy, to add. So we, in polling some manufacturers throughout the state of Nevada, we've come up with some numbers that show we're probably running about 80% capacity in the state with our manufacturing output. So that's what the labor struggles are have done to us on aggregate. Is we could do more, and it's a resilient group. It's a group that gets the job done. And for the most part, we're doing what we can, but there's more orders that just aren't being filled. There's clients that are being turned away. And so it's an interesting struggle, right? It's we've got more business than we can handle because we're running at lower capacity. So 80% capacity. And so when we're looking at our numbers as a state, kind of what our contribution is in manufacturing, that's 80% of what we can do. And so it's something to remember when we're working together as state entities that, we really don't have manufacturing full capacity right now in the state. And it'll come back. We'll get there eventually, but right now we're just not, and it's due to just kind of some labor. So I think there's a lot of resiliency out there. There's a lot of kind of just hanging in and trying to do best and trying to work hard. And those shift managers are just they're struggling right now. And the HR managers, talk about earning your keep. If you're working in HR right now, you are earning your keep. It is tough sledding for HR managers, and they're doing all they can to throw things out there. So, but yeah, just wanted to include that number. 80% capacity about is probably where we're at due to labor constraints.
Well, and I hate to put you on the spot, but I have a feeling you have some insight into this question. I'm wondering how that compares nationally, because we hear, we know that the worker shortage is a national problem, but do you know in manufacturing in particular how this compares? Is that 80% pretty standard?
So it's different in different parts of the country, right? In the Midwest, where they've been manufacturing since the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, it's still relatively new here in Nevada, right? And so back there, their struggles are a little different. The manufacturers out there are trying to get business. They are in a different mode. It's because they have these well-developed talent pipelines in Iowa, for example, and Ohio and Michigan. It's developed really early on in K through 12. And so that they're just robust. They've been doing it a lot longer than we have, right? And so they have the talent that's coming in. And so business still continues to leave from the Midwest. Unfortunately, we get a lot of it out here, and that's part of it too, right? We do have more businesses coming here all the time. It's not like the manufacturing spigot has just been shut off in Nevada. We still have more and more manufacturers moving here all the time, and the people that are moving here necessarily aren't all contributing to the labor force, right? And so in the Midwest, it's just different. They have different struggles, different things, but they're not having those types of capacity issues that we have. Here on the West Coast, Arizona is a similar situation we're in, Utah as well, Idaho, those are all, comparable to our situation, just struggle on that labor and struggle on capacity. But yeah, I think that maybe provides a little insight there, Amy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So seeing no additional introductions from employers or those that work closely with employers, we will move on with the agenda. So given some scheduling considerations, we're going to jump ahead to agenda item number 7, which is partner presentations. Just again, hearing some of the challenges from the first meeting, we selected presenters that could help to speak to some populations that are typically overlooked. And we're hoping that we're going to hear just some brief presentations from 3 presenters here in the state. And we're hoping to hear from employers questions about how to engage, or just a little bit deeper dive into what's happening in this industry, and really how you might consider working with some of these populations. That's really the meat of what we're going for here. So with that, I am delighted to recognize Bill Kwenga, who is the Deputy Director of the Nevada Department of Corrections.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Amy. So Department of Corrections, I'm the Deputy Director, and I oversee several divisions. One of the divisions that I oversee is Prison Industries, and some of you may have heard of it. Also recognizes Silver State Industries. Silver State Industries is a self-sufficient program within the department in the state, no taxpayer dollar. What we make is what we earn and what we buy. Salaries, equipment, and all that. So our mission is not to displace the private sector and reduce costs to government entities statewide. So at this point, Industries, and our mission there is to provide work skills for these offenders. We have approximately 615 offenders in our Industries program, and they're routinely placed in quality professions upon release. The skills gained in our shop include sewing, composting, we got horse training, printing, furniture building, metalworking, mattress, and auto body. Work really close. Our goal is to get them certifications, marketable skills prior to release, so they can get gainful employment upon release. So we work with different companies out in the community. We have companies in Sparks, Reno, that we talk to. I work very closely with Western Nevada College in the North. We implemented a welding certification program for the AWS, American Welding Society. And we brought that in back in 2000, 2002, because if we weren't building prisons or jails, these offenders were doing nothing. So it's like, think outside the box. Let's get these guys some other skills and partner up. So we partner up with subcontractors. And with this program, what we do is they built a lot of steel structural. So I pair them up with the subcontractors and contractors that when they get out, they earn a wage anywhere from 15 to 50 bucks an hour. That's dependent upon the skills certification they receive on the AWS certification. So I work with them, I get them out there, and I work with other companies to include other manufacturers in the state of Nevada. We're currently working with WNC. Like I said, we got the welding class. We're also trying to do the CDL simulator. They have one up there, and I view that program, and we're looking to try to get funding or grant to try to put this over at our Stewart Conservation Camp, which is a minimum custody camp, to get these guys trained up. We have a composting company with truck drivers that go back and forth from Fernley to Carson City. We will get them certified, put them in those trucks, drive it in the day, come back on the evening, park the truck, stay at our camp. Upon release, they get a job with that company outside, and they can still come back and forth. But truck drivers are a shortage. Working with Join also, in the college's workforce development, working with Join to see if we can get some of the manufacturers to bring their equipment. I know there's a manufacturer in Carson, I can't think of the name, that's getting new CNC machines. Very expensive. So with the older machines, what I like to do is partner, bring those machines into our operation here in Carson City or anywhere else. I'll work with anybody to get them training. They build the product, pay them that wage, or work something out from there. And then upon release, they can transition right into the company. And they already have that skill. So that's some of the things we're doing. I'm working with Dr. White at WNC to work with the International Electricians Group, try to get these guys either plumbing, electrical certifications, or apprenticeships, so that upon release, they go out. I'm being approached by several companies out there that do not have the workforce. We have a framing company up in Reno that builds wooden trusses for homes with big developers. So I have a crew of 14 that go up there with one officer. They get paid minimum wage. Upon release, they get a job with them. So there's a lot. We want to create more opportunities for these guys to come out so that they can join the workforce. Because an educated and a skilled offender that comes out of our population is much more able to succeed in our society and re-enter. So we're trying to get them all the skills and transition into the community so that they can adapt and go right into our community. So we have a lot of programs. I'd be happy to have a lot of you guys come in. You can get a call. I'll put my email up there. I'd be happy to bring any manufacturers in, businesses, pair up with me. I'll bring you in, tour the shop, and you can see we got tremendous great carpenters and a lot of fabricators in there. So there's a lot of skill coming out of our program that a lot of people don't know about. But we're proud to do that and get these guys paired up with the community to get them jobs out there so that they can get back with their families and be successful. And that's about all I have.
That's great. That's really awesome to hear that. And to know that you're the point of contact to enter into, to start working with this population. I'm really curious to hear if there are employers or others that have questions, especially when it comes to what it might take to, you know, or what are some of the concerns with hiring out of corrections. And Deputy Director, if do you have information on the numbers of individuals that you're talking about? So you have some of these programs in place. If a manufacturer was to approach you, is there some sort of estimate on how many people you think you might be able to facilitate in a new manufacturing program?
Right now, we have, like Carson City, just one facility we have, Northern Nevada Correctional Center. We have approximately 100 offenders working in that program in various shops. The population there right now is about 1,550, 1,550. Not all are eligible. We screen them real closely and bring them in. We really look at their background and all that with skills. And those that do not have skills, we'll bring them in and start them as a janitor and work their way up. And I heard somebody say something about shadow. That's the best thing I've done. I've been with the department for over 27 years and working in this profession. And I shadow. We have clerks. We have purchasing clerks. We do AutoCAD, laser engraving. We have administrative clerks that open jobs, track the numbers, work with the supervisors, doing AutoCAD and all that. Our offenders in there pick up the phone. They work with MSC, Granger, and they get nothing but kudos about their etiquette on the phone. And it teaches, many of them have been clerks in our operation and they've gone out, but we can bring the population up. Right now, with our minimum custody, it's a challenge. There was a lot of legislation that was passed in the previous, the last session, allowing more credits. These offenders are going home sooner than later. So it's a challenge. We're having issues supporting the Division of Forestry. They have about a 1,500 work crew. We're only able to support maybe 50% of that fighting fires. So that's a challenge that we're running into, is getting enough offenders to the minimum. But in the medium, inside the fence, we have the population. We have High Desert State Prison, Southern Desert Correctional Center, Lovelock, and then Carson City here. Lovelock, we have 20,000 square foot up there. And we partner with drape. We actually manufacture drapes with companies outside that come to us. And one we're really proud of is we did the U.S. Capitol. We did the drapes out there.
Wow.
A lot, we were selected, so we're proud of that. I demand them to take pride in what they build, and I demand quality. And somebody said something about quality control. We try to teach them. I know a lot of people say we have the time to do it right. I don't believe in that. We got to build with perfection because we can't advertise. So if we put a product out there and you're happy with it, you're going to tell everybody else. So we make mattresses too. So there's a lot of skill level that these guys take pride in what they do, and they're chomping at the bit to get that opportunity and come back to society and do good.
That's incredible. What questions are out there from employers? Questions or concerns or just information to share? I don't see any.
I would like to engage with this gentleman as far as possibilities. We have employed ex-felons in the past. I mean, they're basically a captive audience for any industry. And the problem that we are seeing is that we don't do well when it comes to advertising what we do in the community. And it's nice to have a captive audience and encourage them to do the right thing. So yeah, I would like to engage with you on this.
That would be great.
Fantastic. All right. Well, please feel free, if other questions come to mind, you are welcome to put those in the chat. But I will thank you, Deputy Director Cuenca, for being here and sharing about your programs. And I'm excited to see what some connections are made after the meeting. I will now recognize Gracia Perez Rodriguez, who's the Skilled Immigrant Program Officer with Nevada's Governor's Office of New Americans.
Hi, thank you, Amy. Thank you for the introduction. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. As Amy mentioned, I'm with the Governor's Office for New Americans. I am fairly new in the office, and our office is also fairly new. For those of you that are not familiar with us, ONA was created in 2019, and we are here to help our new Americans to have the tools that they need to succeed here in Nevada. Having said that, we are currently working on a 4-year strategy plan that's going to be statewide to take into account our refugees and our immigrants here in the state. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the numbers, but 1 in every 5 Nevadans is an immigrant. We have 36% of brain waste because most of our immigrants and refugees that come here to Nevada are already trained. They have skills, they have foreign credentials, and most of the time when they come here, they end up doing something completely different. So from what they are already trained or what their expertise is. Also, we want to bring immigrants to you guys and to for them to be considered, because I don't know if you guys know, but 75% of immigrants here are in working age. That is a lot more from people that it's native to the state. So what we were working on is creating pipelines of immigrant workers to come work into the companies that you guys work in. But we want to understand what their barriers are and what the barriers of the companies are in order, to employ those immigrants. We are working with the refugee resettlement agencies to sort the talent that we already have in the state, and then utilize programs that are already available in the state too, for them to train and to become possible employees for your companies. So we're currently working on that, but we want to work with the companies. We want to hear what your doubts are, what you guys would be willing, to do in order to adopt our immigrants and refugees. And we expect to have a first cohort here in the South, and also we're going to have a cohort in the North. It's going to be like a way to show not only employers, but also the state that immigrants can be considered to other jobs, not just hospitality, because most of the time when you think about IT, healthcare, or when you think about manufacturer, you don't immediately think about immigrants. When you think about immigrants, you think about hospitality, right? The people that do your bed, the people that clean the hotel. But we want to break that because immigrants are highly trained and they are here to work. And they are an option and for all those jobs that are out there. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys. It's really brief, but if you guys would like to have more information about what we're working on, I will be more than happy to invite you to our working groups that we have. We have one for the North, we have one for the South, to hear out what your doubts are, what your inquiries are, and to answer all these questions. Thank you very much, Amy.
Thank you, Gracia. What questions are out there from employers or others?
I have some.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I would ask about the legal status. Do they have, because I'm restricted by ITAR as to who I can employ. So I can only employ people that have a legal status.
That's an excellent question. All immigrants obviously have a diverse immigration status. Right now, we're going to be focusing on refugees. All refugees that come to Nevada have a legal status and they have a working permit. Obviously, sometimes it takes a few months to get that permit to work, but the people that we are considering for the first stages of this strategy, they're going to be people with work permits, so that you don't have to worry about that part.
Other questions? I have a few. Are you able to share information? I mean, I think what you said, Gracia, really just hit it on the head for these conversations is we want to know what your doubts are. We want to know, like Garrett raised with immigration status, what is it that we as partners may not be thinking about when it comes to barriers for employers? You know, do you have whether it's their status, maybe it's a language barrier. I'd be curious to hear from employers if that's a concern or a consideration, even working with immigrants. And then a question for you, Gracia, is do you have a sense of, I mean, I know it's hard to know how many, immigrants are looking for work, or even refugees that are coming through into being placed in Nevada. But is there a place where individuals, maybe it's regionally or statewide, but where employers can get more information about opportunities to work with these populations coming into the state?
That's an excellent question. And right now we're working, as I mentioned, with the refugee resettlement agencies. They are seeing a lot of people coming from Cuba here in the South, and we have the Afghan refugees in the North. It's my understanding that the Afghan refugee population in the North has slowed a little bit down, but I don't have the numbers yet. As soon as we get them, I'll be back in these sessions to share them with you guys. But I could tell you that we are looking to partner up with other stakeholders out there in the community. For example, we're thinking about partnering with the Consulate of Mexico here in Las Vegas, and I could tell you that they see around 170 people there in their offices per day. Obviously, not all of them will be people with a work permit, but if we are able to create a channel to recruit people, we will have a successful pipeline coming from our immigrant communities. So yes, I cannot give you the numbers right now, how many people do we have, but there's a lot of people. I mean, 1 in every 5 Nevadans is an immigrant. So imagine how many people, and they're just keep on coming. I mean, it doesn't stop. We have people that come with family-based petitions. We have people that come through asylum. We have people that come as a refugee. So there are a lot of ways to come into the United States lawfully. And therefore, we need to consider immigrants for all those jobs out there, right? So obviously, a lot of them would need training for the type of work, the entry-level jobs as you guys were mentioning. But it is also known that out there we have already the programs to train them. So I want to know what are the vacancies, what are the type of talent that you're looking for. Therefore, when we get the numbers, we can say, okay, so our first cohort, we want it to be a manufacturer because there's a great need and we have the talent interested in going into manufacturing. So I hope that answers a bit the question.
Absolutely.
Amy, this is Cindy from the Business
Yes.
Solutions Office.
Thank
I
you.
just kind of wanted to point out, we had a couple employers up here doing light manufacturing that hired the Afghan refugees. And what they did is they hired one person who spoke English, and then they hired those who didn't speak English, and they had a trainer and a translator in place. And that actually resulted in several people getting placed that way, just as a suggestion.
That's a beautiful arrangement. So they hired one of the refugees that also spoke English as a translator, and then were able to hire others into the technical manufacturing side.
Yeah, and if I can just intervene, thank you, Cindy, for that. I was going to mention it because I think it's fantastic what is happening in the North. And I also want to note that the other people that weren't fluent in English, they are taking classes, the ESL classes. So at a point, they will become fluent in English and they will be able to, work without the need of a translator. So.
Thank you. Any other thoughts or questions or comments? All right. Well, I don't see Director Wagger on the call. Do we have a representative from the Department of Veterans Services? I've gotten wires crossed. All right. Well, I will share information that was shared in Okay, shared in previous council meetings with this group to make sure that you have that contact information to contact the Department of Veterans Services and work with those folks. All right. So any other questions for these partner presenters before moving on to the next item? Thank you so much both for being here. Oh, I saw Hunter, did you have a question?
Yeah, Bill, I'm sorry, this is for Bill. And I enjoyed both. I appreciate both of the presentations. You mentioned that you've got you're trucking, I can't remember if it was compost materials. Do you have a slightly different but similar program associated with tree trimming or brush abatement? Is there anything like that your corrections department works and your detainee, I'm not sure what to call them. Yeah, right. Those. Do you have a program like that at all?
This is Bill. No, we currently do not, and we're certainly looking. So we have a partnership with NV Organics, who runs the composting. They have a facility down in Las Vegas. They have one here. They have one in Wyoming, large. So they're getting to that point where we're looking for. And like I mentioned, we're just having the challenge right now of getting enough of these minimum custody. So by statute, minimum custody, we have to check on them once an hour. A community trustee is a lot lower level. They work at different areas. We have buildings and grounds downtown where they don't have to be checked. They're trustees. So if they walk away or something, then they get revoked. They get more time in their sentence possibly and lose their stat time. We're certainly working with NV Organics and doing that. They have a contract, I believe, with waste management here. A lot of the waste that goes through, that comes through here, and it reduces the amount of waste that goes to the landfill. So that's one of the projects they're working on, and I'm sure they'll try to ramp up and do something like that. But that's a great point where, like NDF, they get certified in chainsaws and stuff like that. And that works for wildland fire. These guys coming out, the issues, I don't think they change it, but like NDF, wildland fire, these guys get certs, they do a pack test through NDF, but they can't get on as a firefighter. It's a challenge for them because of either statute or federal guideline or something. But I'm hearing that's starting to change. So that's a challenge. But yeah, we certainly look into everything that we can, if we can provide it, a service out there or partner up with anybody to get different skills. So we're open. I mean, we're always looking. We're not I'm not complacent in any way. I'm always looking for ideas and work with anybody to benefit our population so that it can benefit our community to be a safer place and reduce recidivism. Thanks for the comment on that on the chat. That's our biggest thing, is to reduce recidivism also. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. Thanks. But so what I heard is there needs to be some kind of statutory change.
On certain, yeah, like firefighting, yes.
Or
like
brush abatement and tree trim. Okay. All right. I wouldn't mind working with you on that, because Conservation Corps is one angle, but you've got a good population that can do similar kind of work. So
yes.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. All right. So seeing no further questions, we will move back to agenda item number 6, which is workforce and economic data. So again, please, while you're listening to these presentations, note questions and reactions. You're welcome to put those in the chat and we can address them in between sessions. and really in particular, what resonates with your experience and what might differ. With state agencies, we turn to this data regularly, and so it's helpful to know how this translates to what's happening on the ground with you. So I will now turn it over and recognize Deani McDowell, economist with the Research and Analysis Bureau of the Nevada Department of Employment, Training, and Rehabilitation.
Thank you, Amy, for the introduction. My name is Deani McDonnell, and I work at the Labor Market Information Unit in the Research and Analysis Bureau, which is part of the DETR. I'm going to share with you a presentation that we have prepared for you. Can you see the presentation, Amy?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. We're going to talk up here about what is going on with the jobs or employment. This is a job count, and it's based in the current employment population survey. I mean, the current employment statistics is CS data from the BLS, and we have the jobs that we have lost and gained. As we know, with the recession, there were a lot of jobs gained from February 2020 to May 2020 due to the pandemic recession the last 2 months from February to April 2020. And as we can see, the manufacturing sector has recovered those jobs that they lost and actually added some jobs. Manufacturing lost 6,200 jobs from February 20 to May 2020 and added 11,400 jobs from May 2020 to May 2022, a net gain of 5,200 jobs. So we have more than recovered those jobs that were lost during the recent recession. And as we can see, the durable goods have a net gain of 3,400, more important than the non-durable goods. These are some employment trends for the manufacturing sector in the 2 metropolitan areas in Nevada. The upper part of the graph shows Las Vegas. And we can see that Las Vegas pre-recession peak was in March 2020 when it had about 26,400 jobs. As of May 2022, Las Vegas has reached 27,500 jobs. And we can see the effects of the recession in 2008 and the current recession of the pandemic, but we see that Las Vegas jobs trending up, increasing. On the bottom, you can see the Reno metropolitan area with a pre-recession peak was 26,200 jobs. As of May 2022, we have 30,000 jobs. It's a new all-time high for the Reno metropolitan. And again, we see also in Reno Metro jobs increasing strongly. So very positive panorama in the manufacturing sector for the main metropolitan areas. The next slide shows the employment recovery, also based on the CS data, and also the wages based on the QCW data, which is the quarterly census of employments and wages, again from BLS. And this is data CS from May 2022. And we see all our industries here for the state of Nevada. And focusing on the accommodation sector, Nevada has recovered 80.5% of those jobs that we lost, but we know how hard the accommodation industry was hit by the pandemic. Another interesting thing, accommodations represents about 10.9% of the total employment in the state. And the salaries paid here, according to QCW, is about $840 per week, weekly average. When we turn into the manufacturing sector, we see that the sector has recovered those jobs that lost. We have 100.8.5% recover as of May 2022. We recovered what we lost during the pandemic, and we have added more jobs. Interestingly, as you know, manufacturing is one of the highest paying jobs, and according to QCW, the weekly wages are around over 1,300. And manufacturing represents 4.6% of the total employment in the state. Main three sectors and other ones that have most of the jobs are professional and business services, represents 14% of the economy. Government is with 11% of the economy. So this gives you a high panorama, and again, the positive trend of the manufacturing being able to recover those jobs that we lost and adding more jobs. And this one shows the job openings. This is coming from the JOLTS, or Job Openings and Labor Turnover Survey done by the BLS, and provides information on the labor demand and turnover based on the place of work, again, jobs. The line red is the jobs openings, and the blue area is the CS employment. And we see that high demand in labor has increased and is higher than before the pandemic. Another information that was provided by JOLTS is the turnover, and we see here hires and quits at the national level. In manufacturing, which is the blue arrow that you see in the middle, shows a higher increase in hiring. So we have the blue arrow with the whole manufacturing. Then we have the non-durable goods with the yellow arrow, also with a high rate of hiring, and the durable goods compared with other industries. We have a good ratio when it comes to hiring. Next, we have the hirings and openings. Those openings include all positions that are open on the last business day of the reference month. In this case, we have information from April 22. And again, manufacturing shows a higher increase in hiring. And you see again the yellow arrows and the blue arrow. When we check the earnings data, weekly earnings, again, and this is a ranking, we compare Nevada compared with other states. And we can see when it comes to manufacturing hours and earnings, Nevada is $963 average weekly wages, and it ranks 37 in the nation. When we see the annual change, we see that there's a decline of 2.1%, and this ranks Nevada 44 among other states. When we see the weekly hours, Nevada has approximately 41.2 hours weekly, and that ranks us as 17. And we see kind of maybe the volume of hours employed are down a little bit in Nevada, maybe due to the impact to supply chain issues that we know impacted during the pandemic, the manufacturing sector. The earnings data, hourly earnings, again, refers to data from the month of May, and we see Nevada ranks in terms of average hourly wages, we rank 41 first in the nation from all 50 states. And the annual change, we rank 3.6%. We ranked 40 from all 50 states. And then another positive measure here in terms of hourly earnings, all industries. Another interesting information also is the turnover, and this information provides data from April 22. When you see the level column, it refers to the hires. So we have a higher level of 81,000. These are all industries in the state. For moving average of over 80,000. And we see that we are still not at the city's high, which was 124,000, which was in June 2020. So we still have ways to go in terms of hiring. Job openings, we have a level of 111,000 as of April. The CDS has 123,000 and serious low 18,000. So here we are doing, as you already talked at the employers, you have a lot of job openings. In terms of layoffs and discharges, 10,000 level as of April of this month. Still, the serious high was 246,000. That was March 2020. You see the impact here of the pandemic, and the serious low 10,000. So we are reaching that low level that we had back in April 2022, a new record low. In terms of quits, we have about 40,000 people quitting their jobs, and a serious high was 62,000 in September 2021, and a serious low of 14,000. So we see an increase really in the quits levels in Nevada. Total separations, 52,000, which is coming from the serious high of 200, almost 300,000 in March 2020, but little higher than the low, which was 37,000 in March 2013. And then we have the series or rates. These are the number of hires divided by the CES employment in the month of April. So you see the rate for hires, 5.6%, job openings at 7.1%, loss of job openings, layoffs and discharges only 0.7%, quits about 3%, and separations 3.6%. This chart shows the Nevada unemployment rate for the state is seasonally adjusted. And actually, when you see this as expected during the two recession, our employment rate really increased. It was the highest in the US after this recession in April 2020. And it's been trending down as expected as the recovery continues in the economy. And we have an unemployment rate that has been 5% or below 5%. The last data of Maine shows an unemployment rate of 4.9%. And you can see the gray area shows the 80 and 20% levels for compared to other states. And we are way over that 80% percentile compared to other states. But again, we're trying to get to those low rates that we used to have prior to the recession. This is an interesting graph that shows the long-term unemployment in Nevada, and the blue line represents those people in Nevada unemployed 15 weeks or more as share of the total unemployment. That line shows the median, same measure for all states. And again, the grade shows the 20 to 18 percentile. And you can see that people unemployed 15 weeks or more weeks is higher compared to other states. But remember, Nevada, our state, really relies, especially in the leisure and hospitality sector, and that sector was really hit during the recession. And we started to see a little recovery on that respect. This is the Nevada labor force participation rate. And again, we can see that it's been trending down, and we see that huge spike after the pandemic recession. The labor force participation rate shows you what percentage of the total population 16 years and over in Nevada are participating in the labor force, either working or looking for a job. And as we can see, we start to see a little bit of recovery. And the record high that we had for the labor force participation rate was 73.5% in 1982. We were the highest in the nation. After the pandemic, we dropped to 55.6% in May 2020. And we are trending down, as I said, and as of May 2022, we reached 60.1% in Nevada. and that compares to 62.3% in the US. So we are more or less following the same trends as the Nevada, as the nation as a whole. And one explanation of this declining in the labor force participation rate is that many people are retiring. In Nevada, about 37% of the population is 50 years and older, and this group of people tend to have a lower labor force participation. So this is pushing the labor force participation rate down, not only in Nevada, but probably nationwide too. This is another study that we were doing, trying to look at the labor force participation rate by different demographics groups, by age and educational attainment. The blue line is the Washoe County, and the red line is Clark County. And this is data from the American Community Survey from 2019. When you see the bottom four graphs, it shows the educational attainment, and we can see that for higher labor force for higher education attainment, Nevada has lower levels of labor force participation rate and lower labor force participation rate for higher levels of education compared to other states. So this shows more or less how we're doing compared to other states. Dave, I don't know if you have other comments to add to the presentation, or if I missed something.
No, I'm good here. Just open to hearing any feedback or thoughts on this data, as Amy said.
Yes, please, at this time, if there are questions for the DETR team on this workforce data, we welcome you to raise those. I don't see any in the chat. Is it possible to get labor force participation by group disaggregated for each sector council? So if they're African-American males ages 16 to 24, for example. Can you break it down that granularly?
For the record, this is David Schmidt, Chief Economist for the DETR Research and Analysis Bureau, and unfortunately not. The data that we have comes from the Census Bureau, and it's pretty locked into what sort of data they disaggregate. There might occasionally be something we could find if it's a particularly large industry or occupation, but for the most part, we're either talking about that industry or occupation, if they have it, or the people themselves.
Understood. I had a question. I mean, I think this is pretty representative of what we heard from employers. I don't know if there are other reactions or thoughts to share, but when we're hearing about struggle for talent, particularly looking at the differences across industries, it's when you are up 5,200 jobs from the last couple of years, I think it's pretty easy to see how that why that's challenging. I was wondering, there were two different numbers for weekly wages, and I don't mean to get too much in the details here, but one was 1,300 per week on the one that showed all the different, like way back. Yeah. And then later it's 908, and does that just pull from different data sources?
So there's two different things being used here on the slide that's currently up on the screen. This comes from our QCW program. This is our most comprehensive data. It looks at all wages and total employment on a quarterly basis, but it's a little bit older. I think this is third quarter of 2021, if I remember correctly. Trying to get the most current data we can, but because it's so comprehensive, it takes time for employers to report that data because it comes from the unemployment insurance program, as well as then for us to clean it and publish it and work with it. The other chart with the gray bars and the blue lines for Nevada is a survey-based data. So this comes from the current employment statistics program. It is, because it's a survey, it's a little more volatile. This is also specifically only looking at average weekly earnings for production employees. It's not all wages being earned. And so this would not be including things like supervisors and managers or owners or other non-production employees. So there's some survey volatility here. It's a more recent program and it's looking at a slightly different class of workers overall.
Super helpful. Thank you.
Mhm.
Are there any other questions or comments? And I have one more question, because you made a comment about durable versus non-durable, and I imagine that our manufacturers on the call understand why that is significant, but I think for the many partners that are present, it might be helpful to just explain it. You made something about the durable versus non-durable, but why that's significant, or it's better, it's good that the durable is high.
So we break our classifications of manufacturing. Sorry, Johnny, you can take this if you like. I'm already in question answering mode. This
is Diony McDonough from LMI unit in Dieter. One of the things that happened with the pandemic is people started staying home and using less services and seeing all the things that needed to be fixed around the house. Remember, economics is based in the behavior of the consumers. And I'm pretty sure many people start fixing their homes, putting new floors, buying new furniture, buying appliances. Those are durable goods. So there was a spike in demand for those durable books. So probably this explains why there are more jobs in those durable goods compared to the non-durables. And we have to see what happens in the future, if that trend is going to continue. Are we going to see more increase in those jobs in the durable part of the manufacturing sector, or they're going to start decreasing and then moving back to the non-durable? But it's an interesting thing to me that I spotted when I was reviewing the presentation, that increase in jobs in the durable goods.
And is non-durable like food? I don't know what else would be non-durable.
Durables are usually goods that need to be replaced like every 3 years. I'm talking about appliances, cars, things like that.
Okay.
And those that don't need to be replaced 3 years.
Okay.
Below 3 years, then
toilet paper.
They're not durable. Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. All right. Other questions? See, there's no such thing as a stupid question.
Well, everything is the basics, and that's a good question. Actually, you need to know the difference between durable and non-durable. Durable lasts longer, more than 3 years usually, but you need to replace them at a certain point. So that's why I'm telling you about the appliances, floors, furniture, cars, things like that.
Thank you.
So people stay home and they start looking, oh, I need to replace this, I need to replace that. Of course, people start buying those things, and that makes you see these results now after the pandemic. So we see if that trend continues or not.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I don't see any in the chat. Oh, Matthew. Oh, Matthew, you're muted. Oh, you might be trying to. There you go. Oh, I still, I can't hear the sound come through. You can test or you can put it in the chat and we'll address it.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I was afraid that might happen, and I've called in on the phone as well for audio, but I don't have. But I would like to throw out there that this labor force participation conversation is going to be continued this Thursday at the Northern Nevada Workforce Alliance meeting. And David's going to join us there again, and we're going to talk about that, specifically men versus women and pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. And by attending these meetings, we're able to identify, hot topics and trouble spots for you guys, whether it's manufacturing or logistics. And this just happens to be where we are this week. And we're going to hear from, I said, and then we're going to have somebody from the new one-stop shop of resources for childcare. That's the Nevada Strong Art Center. So they're going to be there talking about their efforts. We're going to hear from the business services about how other employers are dealing with luring women, especially women without college degrees, back to work. The ones who are staying at home right now, providing affordable childcare. So that's happening this week. We won't have a chance to talk again here in this setting before the next meeting in August, but that's another one too that you guys might want to attend. Third Thursday of the month.
Please go ahead and put that information in the chat, and including a contact information for how to get on that list. That's valuable. Thank you. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you very much. And we will move to the GOED presentation. So it is my pleasure to recognize Chelsea Wahlberg, Research Manager with the Governor's Office of Economic Development. Oh, I'm not getting your audio through either.
How about now?
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my presentation isn't going to be insanely long today. It's really focused around our in-demand occupations and some feedback I would like from everyone going forward. So starting with an overall, an overview of our in-demand occupations, how they're put together. I went over this last time. So there are several factors that goes into creating our in-demand occupation list. I'm going to go through each of them in a little bit more detail. Please don't be too overwhelmed by these slides. I'm not going to read them out loud. I just want you all to have this information if you want to look at it later. So what we do is we take a target sector approach. And what that means is we look at the target industries that are identified in GOED's plan for economic development. And we do reverse staffing patterns on those industries so that we are more focused in on the occupations related to those industries. So then we look at STEM scores. Those are developed by Brookings. They were in 2013. Unfortunately, there is no update to that, but they're still pretty valid. The occupations that use STEM heavily in their fields haven't changed much since 2013. So we still find it's pretty useful to be able to push up those occupations that are concentrated in STEM. We identify the location quotients for each occupation. The location quotients let us know which occupations are unique or more concentrated than other occupations within a region. So if an occupation has a location quotient that is higher than 1, that means that our region has a higher concentration of that occupation than does the United States, which is what we compare this to. You can also do a location quotient for an MSA compared to the state. So we could do Las Vegas compared to Nevada as a whole. But in this case, we compare everything to the US because we're trying to make sure that we have enough of these occupations compared to what the rest of the nation does. That said, though, if an occupation has 200 employees or less, for the location quotient for all persons employed in that occupation, excuse me, let me restate that. If it has 200 employees or less in our reverse staffing patterns GOED group, we'll use the location quotient for all of the people employed within that occupation so that we get a better idea of what the actual location quotient is. It's called an economy LQ, and it just helps balance the data if we need to. We also account for jobs postings. We use MC's job postings analytics, which joined with Burning Glass. They actually just relaunched under the name Lightcast. So it's MC and Burning Glass are now Lightcast, but We use that job postings data. When I do these occupation lists, I use the job postings data for the most recent year. So at the time this list was developed, it was May 2020 to April 2021. When I do the list in August again, it will be the most recent year ending in July. So those postings are collected by hundreds of millions of job postings that were created by employers. Lightcast will pull those job postings from the web and clean them up and deduplicate and give us a comprehensive list for each occupation, how many jobs postings we had for each occupation during that time frame. Looking at wages, that's another component that we look at when we're developing this list. That's derived from the OES program and is then updated by Lightcast to be more up to date to QCW data. If there are suppressed wages, meaning there's not enough data in Nevada to properly show that data, then we use national wages. Employment projections. So last year we used Lightcasts or MCs. This year, I'm hoping we will have Dieter's long-term employment projections to use. Instead, I would much rather use our in-house local projections, but those are pretty straightforward. We want to know if an occupation is growing before we suggest that people should look to move to that occupation. The next thing we took a look at is the automation index. This was the first time that we included an automation index in our list. Again, it's for the same kind of reason. We don't want to point people in the direction of a career that's going to go away in the next 10 years or so. And then finally, I did a COVID susceptibility index. That's something I created in-house. It looked at job loss, unemployment insurance claims, and change in wage data from the peak of the pandemic until the most currently available data for each occupation. Excuse me. I don't believe I'm going to include this in the next round. I think our economy has pretty well adjusted, but last year it was pretty important to consider COVID. And then finally, we take all of those factors and we compile them for each occupation, and then we weight each factor for each occupation. And so those weights are determined by expert opinion and regression analysis to derive the most logical and optimal score for all of those occupations. And then once we get to that point, we use the weighted scores to rank each 6-digit occupation to create the ranking list. There's some additional work that goes into rolling up those occupations to rank the 3-digit and the 2-digit SOC codes, but we don't need to get into that at this time. So looking at ranking by major occupational codes. So these are our 2-digit SOC codes. This is how the ranking came out in last year's in-demand occupation list. And 2-digit codes, if you don't know, those are the most broad categories that are available. So our number one ranking occupational group was healthcare practitioners and technical occupations. You can see they're nearly 10,000 jobs below the national average. They've got a high average hourly earnings. And then below that was installation, maintenance, and repair occupations and production occupations. And both of those are very important to manufacturing. So we definitely know manufacturing is in demand, and it's something that we want to point our Nevadans towards when they're looking to change careers or enter a career. So now that I kind of walked you through how we got to that list in the first place, something that we're really lacking in our in-demand occupation analysis is industry perspective from experts. And that's where the Sector Council comes in, and where I'm really begging for some help, because I would like to include your opinions in the next list. I put information technology here, just please ignore that. But there are, I included, or I sent to Amy a list of the top 25 ranked manufacturing occupations. There are a lot more than that, but I'm not going to ask you to do this for the entire list of manufacturing occupations. I don't think anyone has time for that. But what I would like you to do is look at those top 25 and look at our ranking that we came up with, and suggest where you would place those. And you don't need to use the ranking where it fell in the entire list, just do 1 through 25. But if you think that machinist is your number one lacking occupation, you really need machinists, you would rank that number 1. Or if you're seeing like calibration technologists and technicians, that ranked 74th in our list, and you don't think that that's reasonable, you think it should be much lower, put it at 24, if that makes sense. But I will use that information, and I can push up certain occupations or push down other occupations that you disagree with or agree with, or whatever your opinion is of the list. I would really like to know how we can improve it and do better for the next round. So hopefully that wasn't extremely confusing, but I really appreciate any of your feedback, and let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Chelsea. Are there any questions now for Chelsea? I saw one just about the presentation being shared, so just wanted to reiterate, yes, all of these presentations will be shared. If you posted your information in the chat or submitted an interest form, or if you're a voting member or received direct emails from me about the sector councils, you're on my list. So you will get this. It'll also be posted on the website. Any questions? I just want to reiterate how important this is for all of the work that we do across the system. We refer to GOED's in-demand occupations list across the board, regionally, at the state level. It's incredibly important to the work we do in grants, program development, even just in conversation when we're talking about what jobs are in demand, we refer to that research. So, so your input will help us make sure that we're as relevant as possible to Nevada's employers. Thank you. All right. So with that, I'm excited to open up to agenda item number 8, which is partner introductions. And even if you did share earlier, please do feel free to introduce yourself fully and share any resources that you might have that are relevant. Key resources, opportunities, or calls to action. You can use the raise hand feature now to queue up, and I'll use that to go through the first round of folks, putting some prompts in the chat now. If you have metrics regarding, I kind of am pushing more and more for folks to provide this information, but metrics regarding the number of individuals that you work with, clients or participants that are looking for work, and in particular looking for work in this industry, and the timeline for engagement. I think that's something starting to get to some of those details that will be most beneficial for these conversations. But please do feel free to share anything that you think might be relevant. All right, Daniel, I see your hand. Go for it.
Hi, Amy. Daniel Dong with the Northern Nevada Business Solutions Office. And on top of the services that we provide and have discussed previously, we've been coming up with other ways in which we can support manufacturing employers and to help fill what is now about 514 various open manufacturing jobs that are listed in Employee NV. For Washoe County, Clark County has a little over 900. And one of the strategies that we've added in helping close the gap is scheduling visit and tours at manufacturing facilities with our specific employers. We are finding that the more we understand their operations and also what the specific jobs actually do, the better we can help support in finding qualified candidates. It's one thing to read a job description and another to actually see the job performed. So we've been finding value in doing that. In addition, we are ramping up on hosting hiring events for individual companies, which provides an additional path for employers to get in front of candidates. Since Independence Day holiday, we've had 4 hiring events and have an additional few events that are already scheduled for July. So we're continuing that strategy as well. We're also looking for other solutions that employers can implement as policy to increase job seeker interest in current open manufacturing positions, as well as what was brought up earlier, trying to retain current employees. And one issue area that is a concern for employees is childcare. And we've been actively contacting employers that we support with a survey to see what types of programs or services they may be offering in this particular area. And that can be shared with other employers who are looking to address this issue as well. And as Matthew already mentioned, one venue where this information sharing can take place is at the Northern Nevada Workforce Alliance monthly meeting. As Matthew mentioned, it's the 3rd Thursday of each month from 2 to 3, so just very short time frame for people to get together. And again, another way for employers to engage with one another and discuss issues and come up with solutions. And then last but not least, with the current shortage of labor, an option to employers is to look at segments of the available worker population that they may not normally look at. And the state provides financial incentives to employers to hire specific groups of individuals, such as veterans or young adults, usually 18 to 24 years old, and also justice served individuals through the Silver State Works program. And regarding the justice served, there is also a free federal program that can bond these individuals, and that'll help reduce any risk if there is a concern in hiring anyone from this particular group. So that's what we're doing so far.
That's it, huh? I'm just kidding. That's fantastic.
Wait, page 2 is coming up.
Well, I know, and you mentioned it's in addition to the other resources you've shared previously. We will share a link to the childcare survey that was mentioned. And if there's any other information that you would like shared out that may not already be on the radar, please do put that in the chat. We'll make sure to share that out with the group. I know some folks had to leave early. It's a long meeting, but I would love to hear maybe in the next meeting with this type of update, with those 4 hiring events, how many individuals are attending, or how many, not only, I mean, it's incredible between Washoe and Clark that there are 1,400 manufacturing job openings. How many individuals are in Employ NV that are looking for work or coming into your centers? So I think that the group would be really very, very interested in understanding that side of the equation as well. Okay, so I will move on to Nancy Olson.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Nancy Olson. I'm the Adult Education Program Supervisor at the Nevada Department of Education. So I work with both the federally funded Adult Education Program as well as the Adult High School Diploma Program that is offered through school districts. And I just wanted to introduce myself because one of the things that we do with the federal program is work directly with employers to provide classes on site when feasible. So obviously with smaller employers that can be an issue because of the number of students that might need our services. But we do, for some of the larger employers, go on site and provide basic skills training as well as English as a second language. And we do try to focus on the needs of that employer when it comes to materials and contextualizing instruction around those materials. So for instance, if you have safety, information posted on safety or information on, using certain equipment, we can use those materials to teach the individuals the basic skills necessary for the position. We served approximately 6,000 students prior to the pandemic. We did go down during the pandemic, but we are seeing a rebound in the number of students that we're serving through the federally funded program. And I'm focusing mainly on the federally funded program because that is where we have the flexibility, the most flexibility to go out and serve incumbent employees. We are starting a new program year this month. And so any incumbent employees that you have that you want to refer to us, certainly do so. If you are interested in having something on site, you can always reach out to me and I can connect you to the local programs in your area. So we'd be happy to help in any way we can. And you might want to look at, what the requirements are for positions. If a high school diploma or equivalency is automatically a requirement, we have individuals that have not yet achieved that, but would be very good employees given the opportunity to work and continue working towards their high school equivalencies. So it is just something to take into consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing. And I actually have a follow-up question for you, Nancy. For those that are on the call that are aware of some open positions or looking to reach the populations that your team works with, do they reach out to you? Do they go through Employee NV? Do they, how do they work with you to hire those 6,000 individuals in your system?
Well, so our programs, as much as possible, get people registered into Employee NV. About 40% of the students that we have come to us employed. But obviously that means there's a large percentage that are not employed. So we do try to get them into Employee NV whenever possible. But certainly if you are interested in connecting directly with the local programs, because I am at the state level, but if you are interested in connecting directly with the local programs, you can certainly do that through me. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other employers? We do have a few more minutes. This is really the last substantial agenda item. So if there are other employers, partner side. If there are other partners that would like to introduce themselves and maybe share some of any updates or resources that they might have.
How do you raise your hand?
Go for it.
Oh, my name is Dan Flick. I'm with the College of Southern Nevada. They've hired me to start up some manufacturing programs, basically in a couple areas. One is machining and that type of manufacturing, and then also with automation and controls, which would be anything industrial maintenance wise, automation wise, that are so in demand out there. I was a little bit concerned moving to the valley because there are not a lot of machine shops here in the area. I've subsequently found out there's quite a bit more than I was led to believe. But that's one of the things we're doing is trying to get some of the underserved population here through our DWED. We have a Department of Workforce Development that does training for incumbent workers, and then we also have the credit side and the DWED side that does entry-level workers. Maybe we should call them green workers or green manufacturing workers, something, I don't know. I was looking up synonyms for entry level and it didn't look good. It was like uninitiated, unskilled, and there was a lot of bad terminology along with that term. So maybe we ought to think about looking at something that doesn't have that connotation. But so we are training now. We have been training since I've been working with the college for the past couple of years and getting them up to speed with some curriculum and also some spaces they can do some training for manufacturing using industry equipment and using some up-to-date processes, things like that. So it's something that's kind of hasn't been done here in Southern Nevada. I know they've done it up in Truckee and up near Northern Nevada, especially to service all of the companies that are working with Tesla. And it looks like it's exploding up there as far as manufacturing goes. But down here in Southern Nevada, there's a very large company that's moving into the area, which Jared, how do you say your name from up there from the Papinga?
Papinga. Garrett Papinga, yeah.
Garrett, okay, Garrett, okay, I didn't know. But there's Haas Automation is moving in the next few years. They're breaking ground on a very large plot, 2.5 million square feet, I think. So in response to that, the state has been putting a lot of eggs in the basket of manufacturing, and this is one of the things that they've done to basically steer us in a direction of maybe not putting all our eggs in the accommodation, gaming, and hospitality industry, and starting getting some hard manufacturing going. So if anybody wants to contact me, I put my number in the chat. Also, my email address was daniel.flick@csn.org. Excuse me, I keep saying .org. That was my last email address, but it's .edu. daniel.flick@csn.edu. We're building some things out. I've purchased a lot of equipment recently for the training, and we're already doing some training, but not quite enough. So we're going to be trying to get some people out with some. Here it goes again. Entry-level skills and some skills that can be built upon. I know Gerd was looking for quality control, and I think he's looking more at dimensional metrology probably more than anything. Not so much quality systems or anything like that, but actual hard inspection type things, which we have the capability of instructing on. One of the big things that I'm faced with right now, as far as everybody else too. I mean, I've been in industry since 1977 as a machinist, tool and die maker, programmer, engineer. I've been in it quite a while, and the one thing that that you're all the industry and manufacturing, not just manufacturing, but every industry is having a hard time with looking for quality people. Same thing with education. It's even worse because you need people that have that they have that experience. They also have the people skills that they need to actually show what what they know and carry on some of their trade skills, some of their skills that they've had throughout the years. So that's a really tantamount to almost impossible. So one thing I would ask anybody here, if you know anybody that's really good with people and that understands manufacturing at any capacity, we really need instructors to help out with that. So that typically my advisors or my manufacturing partners that are out there are the ones that really come forward and to give us possibly adjunct faculty or maybe we can partner with you to do some training in-house like was discussed earlier. So that's just one of the things that I want to put out there because I feel like I'm in the same boat as everybody's with manufacturing, but I think it's a little bit more difficult. So I just wanted to introduce myself. You can call me anytime. I think that phone goes right to my cell phone, so I'm available 24/7. I do sleep once in a while, so it may be groggy when I answer the phone. So any questions or anything, or anything have anything for me right now, I'd be happy to discuss it.
Thank you so much. Other partners that would like to introduce themselves? Craig, I saw your comment. I'd love for you to introduce yourself. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Craig Satuki. I'm the Director of the Office of Career Readiness, Adult Learning and Education Options for the Nevada Department of Education. I work with Nancy. I let Nancy take care of all the adult ed stuff, and I take care of the significant portion of the career technical education portion. We primarily oversee the secondary CTE programs, but we do provide some funding to the community colleges through our federal funds. Right now, we are actually in the middle of a transition in our manufacturing program study. We're actually transitioning our program into a 2-year course sequence at the high school level, which will allow students during their 3rd year, 4th year in high school to do dual credit. They can do work-based learning. They can earn industry recognized credentials. And so we're in the middle of that process right now. We just finished our standards revision for advanced manufacturing. I think I read them last week. So looking forward to moving forward in terms of expanding our manufacturing programs. We do have manufacturing programs throughout the state. They're very popular. The problem that we have, as Dan mentioned earlier, is finding teachers to teach those courses. And at the secondary level, we tend to have a few extra requirements that we have for licensing, but we're always looking for teachers, just like everybody else is in education. So but feel free to reach out to me. I did early on put my email address in there. If anybody wants to reach out and learn a little bit more about our manufacturing programs for the state, I'll be more than happy to share that with you.
Thanks so much, Craig. We probably have time for one or two more, and I see Mark's hand raised there.
No, I wanted to pipe in just very quickly on CTE and a little bit what Dan up in our Northern Nevada office does. And we are working actively with the CTE program here in Southern Nevada. We started as a tested manufacturing and actually had small reverse, I guess a job fair, but to key employers in manufacturing matched up. And I just wanted to report that kind of interaction takes a misnomer away from manufacturers that students coming out of high school potentially not through a CTE program don't have the discipline or the soft skills. And the CTE program is providing a comprehensive thing, not only how to do the job, but how to keep the job. And what was impressive from these two that we did, of the 17 or 20 for each location we had, actually in the manufacturers hired at least 4 or 5 of these individuals, and literally quoted as saying their jaws dropped as to how knowledgeable and how work ready they were in the manufacturing. Conversely, some students coming out of this program are now continuing on enrolling in programs like at CSN to do some more manufacturing and maybe something a little bit higher level. But it's an untapped resource, and I strongly suggest it be nurtured, and it's a part of what this program is doing down here, and I'm sure starting up in other parts of the state. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to share quickly that in the NEPRIS for Nevada platform that I presented during the last meeting, we are hosting, or we're organizing a manufacturing event for the month of October. And we're trying to get as many Nevada manufacturers to present to students as possible. Just to give you an idea of what this impact can look like, Tom, who's on the call today, he's presented 5 times in the system. He's reached 44 classrooms in those 5, where they have maybe half-hour, 45-minute presentations, so not a huge time investment, and impacted 1,500 students. So that's across the country, but it's pretty impressive to see just what that, if there are 5 sessions, a half hour each, maybe 2.5 hours, how you can reach that many students. And his session, to get its creators wanted, getting students really excited about manufacturing, is just fantastic. Michael DeBlasi from Tesla has presented 3 times in the platform. He's reached 37 classrooms, 788 students. So it's really a fantastic way to get out there. This will align with a National Manufacturers Month. So I'll be reaching out to you individually, but I hope to see some more presentations in there. I don't think we have any more time for partner introductions. So please, if you have upcoming events or anything that might be relevant between now and the next meeting, please put that in the chat now. So very quickly, I need to ask if any voting members arrived after the vote roll call to please identify yourself so you can be marked present, which I've been looking at your names and I don't see any. There are just 2 of you. All right. So with that, then the final item before we adjourn is agenda item number 9 is public comment. Although you have all had the opportunity to share, this is a required space for other members of the public to provide comment. As a reminder, no formal action may be taken on any issues not included in the posted agenda, and public comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. So please raise your hand to be recognized for public comment. Okay, hearing no comments, I move to adjourn this meeting, and I thank you all very much for your very thoughtful participation.